Good afternoon. Welcome to January. We were just talking right before we came on this that we're all at varying levels of excitement as the new year. When Emily asked me to do this in December, I had a whole, different mindset for what this would look like. And so I'm going to incorporate back in some of this COVID element because it seems to not be gone yet. I was hoping maybe we would be thinking more hopeful, a little more positive, but right now we're kind of back into that. So my name is Molly Crouser, like she said, events and partnerships manager with the Lancaster Chamber. Just briefly, I do our special events and sponsorships, as well as help lead strategically kind of all of our events and programs for the Lancaster Chamber. And then that other side of it is partnerships. And so I'm easing into taking on a little bit more of representing Chamber in community spaces, which is really great. So we can kind of keep moving through. I did want to kind of set the tone a little bit just to let you know where we're at and where some of this comes from a current COVID events philosophy. So we've been having discussions with sponsors, with venues, with vendors and things like that as we think about 2022. And so kind of right now, we're not in the game of canceling things anymore. I think we were in 2020. I think we're out of that in 2022. I think we've gotten used to the pivot a little bit. We walk into most situations with plan A, best possible scenario, and also walk in with plan B, C, D, E, and F as well. Thinking about all the different ways that this could be done differently if we needed to. So when we think about events and programs, kind of what is our options when it comes to hybrid, when it comes to taking it virtual, and really also being transparent in that with folks like our attendees and our sponsors. So we can manage expectations ahead of them signing up, ahead of them signing up for a sponsorship and investing, a higher level amount of dollars. Just know that we do everything we possibly can to make this plan A, but it's out of our control, as we all know. And we have, I think they know that we're committed to the best experience for each event and program that we offer. So that's a part of this is a little bit pre-COVID era. Part of it is a little bit now back into it. So I just wanted to kind of set the tone of this is where this is all coming from. I do have two polls. I'd like to just take kind of like a status of where everybody is at right now in your own experiences. And so the first one is, what was your biggest struggle when it came to event attendance pre-COVID? And so the options are marketing and advertising, getting the right content, finding the best time for business people, cutting through the competition, or if it was something else, push other, and then please drop it in the chat. Want to know kind of like where your struggles are at. So we'll take a second to answer that one. And then the second one, because it's on here, what are you finding is your biggest attendance struggle as we navigate through COVID-19? And I would say probably right the end of 2021 into 2022, what do you anticipate that struggle being? Determining the delivery of events. Is that you're finding that to be difficult? The quick pivots are hard, right? So deciding 1 week ahead of time that that's not what you can do anymore. Can't get anyone's attention to sign up. Or if it's other, drop it in the chat so we can kind of understand a bit where your struggles are at too. Can we pick all three for the second question? Yeah. So I wish you could. Number one struggle. These were all our struggles, to be fair. So that is why I have all of them written on here, is because I was trying to come up with what ours as Lancaster Chamber's biggest struggle is. So that's where they came from. So we're getting some good. Okay, so it looks like for the first one, finding the best time for business people, right? So like determining, is it morning? Is it afternoon? Is it over lunch? Those types of things looks like a high one, with the next two being cutting through competition, being another one. For the second question, when we think about from right now, navigating through COVID, looks like the top one is the quick pivots, which I totally get. And then determining delivery, and we can't get anyone to sign up, being close second, and tied for second, I should say. That's great. And so we'll have those. Hopefully people are sick of Zoom. Yeah, I'm going to also try to monitor a little bit of the chat here too, as we talk through this. So we'll kind of look at those results. Thank you. I think that helps set the tone a little bit about where everybody is, where you are, kind of jogs where you're at in your process. I just want to talk very briefly before we kind of get into more of the roundtable thoughts around 4 ways to maximize that customer experience and that attendee experience. It has obviously been on something, that's constantly on my team's mind as we walk through the planning process. And certainly in the last couple of months as we've been brainstorming and planning for 2022, is kind of how do we do this? So here are 4 things we think about, I would say, that help us kind of deliver the best customer experience to our events and programs. The first one, I keep going back and forth. There we go. First one is determining delivery based on the desired outcomes. So more than ever, because we have 968 ways to deliver something, and who knows which one we're going to use, we really think about the method by which the desired outcome we want our audience to walk away with. Do we want them to have networked? Is that the number one? Do we want them to walk away with the right information, the information that we want the businesses to be thinking about in this moment? Do we want them to walk away feeling a little bit more energized and confident in a certain skill set? So if whatever the desired outcome is, really helps us determine what that delivery method is. If it is professional development and we want them to walk away with a new or confident skill set, that can be done virtually. And so let's stick with virtual and be confident in that. We're good.
I was trying to admit someone into the group and accidentally muted you. Carry on. Not trying to silence you.
If it's networking, then we need to think about how we're doing this in person. What does it look like to pivot it? And so at all times, kind of thinking about what's the desired outcome, and then what is the best delivery method? Is it virtual versus in person? What hour of the day feels like the best for this delivery, this type of event or program? What day of the week feels the best? Is there an added networking element, or is it just content? Is it a keynote speaker or a panel? Do I need people to be spaced out, or can they be close together? So it's all of these ways of thinking through what the desired outcome and what the desired experience is to be and what we really want that to look like, and then working our way back into that delivery method. The second one we think about is a clear and well-developed, yet extremely flexible communication plan. I don't know if you're feeling this right now. We were just talking about this yesterday in our team meeting. We feel like we're having to shift the way we do communications and marketing plans for our events and programs because of the current way people are signing up for events and programs. They're waiting until the last week and a half. So how do we think about how we communicate differently? Do we put it up on the website 6 to 8 weeks ahead of time? Do we let it sit for a little while? Because we know that we need to see it on social media. They need to see it in our weekly emails. They need to do this, they need to do that, and then really hit them hard in the last week and a half, because that's when we know they're going to be signing up for something. So really thinking of clear and well-developed ways to communicate and market your event or program, I think is going to be really helpful. And it is definitely a shift, at least it has been for us, in the way that we've been thinking about how we do that. General copy, also really making it tailored. So we've been doing kind of larger general spaces, but then really tailoring in, because the more people feel like we're getting it to them because it's for them. So a women's event, getting it directly to someone who's A, participated in a women's event before, or B, as a woman that's really heavily involved with the chamber, they know that that's being delivered directly to them. And so that's also been really helpful too. We've been able to kind of convert people really nicely into, they know it, they've done it. And so how do we bring them back for another one? Setting up for the event, just quickly, this is just agenda. And so really making sure that's a really intentional agenda, that people know about it ahead of time. What are they walking into? Are they walking into registration and networking for a half an hour, and then they're sitting down to learn something? Are they jumping on and it's going to start within 5 minutes of them jumping onto the Zoom call? What does it look like, and how clear can we be to people to set that agenda? And then if it's necessary to do something with networking, then how are we doing that in kind of the COVID space? Are we masking people? Are we setting things farther apart? Are we using more space because we didn't think we needed to before, but now we are? But really making sure our folks know what that looks like and know what the agenda looks like that they're walking into. And then it's all in the details. I cannot express this enough. So I'll kind of run through a little bit. For us, it is, like I said, about the transparency piece of things. We send a reminder email template that has exactly the location, the parking, the what to expect when people walk through with clear times, so they know what's going on. And then also a clear follow-up email. And so this is just a template of that, but the next one is a little bit of what we have inside of it. So post them leaving this event, as soon as you think they've processed the experience, how am I hitting them again with something else they might need? What resources do we have that line up with it? What are contacts of speakers or other resources that they might need, people resources they might need as they kind of think about what they learned or what they heard? Community or government, any other resources that we have related to it, incentivizing their return. We've done this a couple of times where we've said, okay, you attended something. Now we're going to give you 10% off of the next one to attend. And so really trying to make sure that they know what's happening next. So as they've processed the one, we're catching them again and getting them to kind of recruiting or retaining them again for the next event. And then making yourself or your staff or the right staff person available as a person resource. I think we all know that we are stations of resources for our communities. And so how do we kind of continue to have that really sharp customer service aspect of it as well? And then the other thing that is a small one for us is name badges, and having a trash can for the trash for the name badges, and making sure that food and beverage is set in a way that feels comfortable during COVID era, or is if it's coffee, making sure that we just have coffee. The smallest little details that really make that experience as a level up from your competition or a level up from people who are doing other events. Finding those little tiny ways of doing that will bring people back. We have a really high retention rates. I think at one point, Emily and I had talked about what our retention rates are. I forget what it was like 75% or something like that of people who continue to come back to our events. And so that's helpful from a budgetary perspective. That's helpful from using them as a resource, using them as your own other ways of getting new people to come in, et cetera on that. So retention is really important for us too.